He made headlines for his cheeky way of committing crimes. A teen from small-town America who's been on a crime rampage through the U.S. and Canada. Now police on both sides of the border are desperate to catch him. Our Carolyn Jarvis picks up his trail.
It was clear as soon as we arrived, we were not welcome. A spray-painted warning by the road was the only greeting we were to receive at the former home of one of the most notorious thieves in North America. His name is Colton Harris-Molton, and at 19 years old, he's been labeled America's most wanted teenage bandit. He started by stealing cars, then boats, and now planes, and he's linked to more than 50 crimes across the Pacific Northwest. What's exceptional is that for some reason, police can't seem to catch him. And all the while, his crime spree keeps getting more brazen.
Are you tired of it all?
Yes, yeah, I am.
Sheriff Mark Brown has been on Colton's trail for 6 years.
How has he been able to evade police?
He's comfortable living in the woods, and there's a lot of places where he can hide himself. And he did a lot of his operations at night under the veil of darkness. I certainly would like to apprehend him. I think a lot of folks would.
Fueling the police's motivation to catch Colton is the fact he's taken on a cult-like status. 25,000 people online are now so-called fans of the thief who defies capture, telling him to keep running and calling him a hero to humanity. You can even buy a Colton Harris-Molton t-shirt or sing the ballad of Colton Harris-Molton.
Colton Moore was a lad who turned out bad. He robbed the tie store. He lived in our ships and he slept in our beds. And they say he was rotten to the core.
Colton even has his own moniker, the Barefoot Bandit.
They called him the Barefoot Bandit because he ran away barefoot through the woods. That was at the very beginning.
Security video has caught him breaking into businesses barefoot. Others have found his footprints left behind. But whatever you call him, police see him in one light.
He's a burglar. I think he's a criminal. I think he's a thief. And I think he should be looked upon as that.
So what did a teen from Washington State do to gain all this attention? We decided to trace Colton's trail right from where it started 2 years ago when he snuck out of a halfway house only 1 year into his sentence.
So he came down the road right there with the police, behind him.
Joshua Flickner's store was one of the first places to be hit. Colton allegedly stole a Mercedes and with police on his tail, jumped out while the car was still moving.
And so it rolled up the hill and it came and it barely squeezed through. It maybe it rolled over the curb. I don't remember the exact, but it squeezed right in here, bumped the grease dumpster from the restaurant, which then went back and bent the propane line.
So he just went off somewhere into the woods here?
Ran, somewhere out there, and then somehow cut back across the road into these woods, and then on foot went all the way back to the area near his mom's house where they knew he was somehow in there.
Colton had vanished. All that was left behind, this now trademark self-portrait of Colton, ostensibly taunting police from his forest hideout.
He is cunning and he is intelligent. You'd be a fool to say he isn't.
Next, it was homes, allegedly breaking in by the dozen. Everyone in town seems to know at least one person who's been hit, like Bob's friend who didn't want to be named.
But she's been broken into, her garage, several times, and either frozen pizzas or mint ice cream taken. And so she knows it's him. So she said, I'd probably just be better off to bake him a couple dozen cookies, leave him a note, and leave the cookies outside so he quits ruining my garage door.
And that's why people say Colton has Goldilocks syndrome, because so often he just breaks into these homes to raid the fridge, have a bath, lead the normal life he never had.
It didn't stop there, though. Planes were Colton's next obsession, even though he didn't have a clue how to fly. So he had manuals delivered to a restaurant that he would later break into. The whole thing caught on security video.
We had thought somebody got in the office, wasn't sure. Then they had How to Fly Small Aircraft DVD and security cameras delivered here.
It's believed Colton used an online flight simulator to fill in the gaps. And in November 2008, he allegedly stole his first plane. But while the takeoff seemed easy enough, the problem was the landing, and he crashed 500 kilometers away. 10 months later, police say Colton tried again with the same crash landing result. So he took to the water, allegedly stealing a boat and coming to Canada. There, police believe he stole a car and drove to the quiet town of Creston in the interior of BC. For a teen with a penchant for flying, it was almost too easy.
I actually happened to be on duty that day, and I came out, and when I arrived, there was a black 2003 BMW parked basically here.
Just on the road?
Just pulled over a bit on the road and facing towards the main road.
Staff Sergeant Gord Stewart with the Creston RCMP found the BMW dumped at the local landfill only minutes from the airport.
The location where we are was very odd, and the type of vehicle really didn't fit in. I mean, this is a rural farming area out here. Why that vehicle would be here seemed odd as well.
Could he have walked to the airport from here?
Oh, absolutely. As I said, if you go through this field and a little bit of bush, you're about 1 kilometer from the airport.
He managed to go in around there and open that deadbolt somehow, and don't ask me how he did that.
Manager of the Creston Airport, Les State.
He passed up on all kinds of stuff that was worth money, way more money. He was after an airplane. That's pure and simple.
Colton tried for 2 nights to steal a Cessna, but couldn't get one off the ground. So on the 3rd day, he allegedly took off with some food, a car, and 2 guns.
How many hangars did he break into?
3 hangars.
How many planes did he try to steal?
1 plane.
Vehicles?
3. 1 successfully.
Unbelievable. This is where Colton's Canadian journey came to an end. At the U.S. border, only minutes away, where he dumped the 2nd car, and at night, when the border was unmanned, slipped into Idaho.
Only days later, a 3rd plane went missing, this one in Idaho. And yet again, the wreckage was found 300 kilometers away. A military chopper and SWAT team were dispatched, but they couldn't find the ghost pilot. For months, there was no sign pointing to the Barefoot Bandit, until this past February, when a small plane went suspiciously missing and was later found on Orcas Island. There, a grocery store was broken into, and chalk footprints were found drawn on the floor with the cheeky message, "See ya."
Still to come on 16 by 9.
What's going to happen now is some little old lady or some man with a gun is going to catch him running across the yard and they're going to shoot him.
You know, I got neighbors who would just love to pop him. There's a whole vigilante kind of mentality running now.
That's all coming up. We're back with the bigger picture.
For months, there was no sign of the Barefoot Bandit until this past February when a small plane went suspiciously missing. Again, here's our Carolyn Jarvis with Catch Me If You Can.
He's been linked to more than 50 robberies across the Pacific Northwest, a teenage bandit who police can't seem to apprehend. But now 19, legally an adult in the eyes of the court, the boy who grew up a child criminal is becoming increasingly audacious, and the consequences of his crimes are greater than ever. So how did Colton's life go so wrong?
Nobody in town really talked to him or liked him. I don't know of any friends he had besides me.
Serving time in a Spokane jail for robbery, Harley-Davidson Iron Wing, the only person claiming to be Colton's accomplice.
He's like I am. He's smart. He learns real quick. You just gotta take the time to show him.
The image Iron Wing paints of Colton is one of a social outcast, a brilliant mind with little direction.
Came natural to me because I've done it for a while, but he was kind of still new at it, so I had to help him out a little bit. I would go out there at nighttime, catch a late bus, get out there. He'd come and pick me up. We'd go and do our burglaries. We were hitting I'd say about 15, 20 houses a night.
Some assume Colton's crimes are the result of his upbringing. Dan has been his next-door neighbor since Colton was born and became accustomed to the yelling across the yard.
His home life isn't all that is terrible. The trailer should have been condemned before it was brought in. There was no windows on it a few years ago. That bad.
How so?
Just his alcoholic mother.
Is there a dad in the scene or a father figure?
No. No. definitely not.
According to him, Colton may be right back where he started, in that rundown trailer with his mom.
What do you hear?
Colt, shut up. I mean, the same thing I've heard for 20 years. They argued a lot. He just says, shut up, Mom, and she says, shut up, Colt.
If his upbringing has prompted some sort of cry for attention, Colton has gotten it, and he knows it.
One time for sure, he came in and got candy bars.
His fingerprints were found inside Dennis Dutoit's office, where Colton broke in to Google himself.
There's hundreds of things on him now. Look at me, I'm top news story, most wanted teen bandit. Oh my, yeah, how ridiculous.
Colton stole Dutoit's credit card number, helped himself to dinner, and took off.
That chicken bones and the package and the cheese and everything were all out there on the side of the road.
It's like he wants to be caught.
He's rubbing it in their face is what he's doing. Look at me, I can get away from you guys, you're not fast enough.
At the end of the day, no matter how bad his upbringing is, he's still making the wrong decisions, he's still hurting people, and he's still a criminal.
Do you know where Colton is now?
No. If I knew where he was, I'd go get him, or I'd at least call the sheriff.
And therein lies the crux. No one knows for sure where Colton is. Police have received tips that he's back in Northwest Washington. They even launched a manhunt back in March to find him, to no avail. Their theory? That he's living in a forest hideout, just like the one Les State discovered beside the Creston Airport.
He picked a pretty good spot because it's very rare that anybody ever comes in here. There's his little spot where he hung out for 2 nights, we figure, and
Oh my gosh.
and the dishes are still here.
Those closest to him claim Colton is just waiting for the spectacle to end and the right time to make a safe exit.
As soon as the media dies down and everybody leaves him alone, he will then turn himself in.
His surrender couldn't come soon enough because the man who is a cult phenom to thousands is a growing source of anger to others.
What's going to happen now is some little lady or some man with a gun is going to catch him running across the yard and they're going to shoot him.
You know, I got neighbors who would just love to pop him. And there's a whole vigilante kind of mentality running now.
A teenager who's known nothing but running and who at some point will run out of luck.
If it gives her boy back his self-respect,